Mama, somebody help me. I woke up like this and I don't know what's happening. Muna was the beautiful girl in our village, had everyone stopping in their tracks. But today something feels different. What would you do if you woke up to a life-changing surprise? She had smooth dark skin that shone in the sun, eyes as bright as the morning, and a smile that would calm a crying baby. She was the only child of her mother, Mama Muna, who sold roasted corn in the village market and always wore a cheerful face. Everyone said Muna took her mother's beauty, but in a stronger measure, if her mother was a candle, Muna was the bright morning sun. Men from different parts of the village would come to see her, bringing her and her mother tuber of yams, kegs of palm wine, cassava, groundnut, even baskets of tomatoes and fresh fish just to win her heart. Some would pretend they were just being kind to Muna, but everyone knew they wanted Muna to look at them with her sweet smile. Muna would smile and say, "Thank you, my brother," then laugh lightly. She enjoyed the gift, but did not mind the men too much. She would help her mother roast corn in the evening and laugh with her friends, not minding the men who stood far away watching her as if she was the only water in a dry land. Her father, Papa Muna, was the happiest man in the village. When he went to any palm wine joint, young men would rush to pay for his drink, hoping he would give his daughter's hand in marriage. Papa Muna would smile from ear to ear, pressing his big belly and laughing, saying, "Ha, you people want my daughter, Muna. You have to try Ada." He would drink the free palm wine, chew the kola nuts, and laugh again, while the young men would beg him, "Papa Muna, please let me marry her. I can give you a goat, even a plot of land." Meanwhile, in another small mud hut in the same village, Moya, Muna's stepsister, was boiling with jealousy. Moya was always a soft girl with soft skin and a round face, but people did not notice her much. Men would pass her by and go and greet Muna, and this made her angry. She would look at her mother, Mama Moya, and complain, "Mama, I'm even more beautiful than Muna. But see how men bring yams and palm wine to her. I'm sure she's using charm on the men." Mama Moya would sometimes hiss and wave her hand. "Forget about her, my daughter. Maybe it's just her luck." But this time, Mama Moya looked at Moya quietly and nodded her head slowly. "Maybe right, Moya. Maybe she's using charm. But let me tell you the truth, Muna is beautiful." Moya's face squeezed like a baby who just tasted bitter leaf. "Mama, so you are saying I'm not beautiful? Am I a goat? Why don't men look at me the way they look at her?" Mama Moya looked at her daughter's angry face and burst out laughing, slapping her thigh. "You this girl, you look like me and I'm beautiful too. But let me not lie, Muna's beauty is shining too much." But as Mama Moya laughed, her eyes became small and sharp like a cat. She stopped laughing and looked around carefully before leaning closer to Moya. "Moya, listen to me," she whispered. "Tonight, we will go somewhere together. We will put an end to this madness once and for all." Moya's eyes widened and her heart began to beat fast. "Mama, where are we going?" "Just wait, you will see." Mama replied with a wicked smile. That night, it rained heavily. The wind blew hard, shaking the small horse in the village, and thunder roared in the sky like an angry drum. Everyone stayed indoors, covering themselves with wrappers. But Mama Moya and Moya did not care about the rain. Mama Moya told Moya's younger sibling, "Lock the door and tell your father we're going to ease ourselves. If he asks, tell him we will soon come back." They wrapped their heads with black clothes, tied their wrappers tightly, and stepped out into the cold rain, carrying a small black calabash wrapped in red cloth. The mud road was slippery, and the cold water soaked their wrappers, making them shiver. Moya almost slipped and fell, but Mama Moya held her hand. Moya wanted to ask where they were going, but fear tied her tongue. As they walked, thunder struck again and Moya jumped. "Mama, are we not going to die in this rain?" Mama Moya hissed, "Keep quiet. You want the spirit to hear us and scatter our plans? Just walk." As they reached the bush path near the big iroko tree, a loud owl hooted about them, and Moya screamed, "Mama! A witch! A witch!" Mama Moya slapped her back. "It is not a witch, it is an owl. Keep quiet before you wake the spirit." Moya's teeth were shaking, not just from the cold, but from fear. She regretted following her mother, but it was too late to run back. She started praying in her heart, God, if I come back alive, I will never follow Mama again at night. They finally reached a small clearing where the rain did not touch the ground because of the thick leaves about. Mama Moya dropped the calabash on the ground and began to chant, her voice mixing with the sound of the rain. Moya looked around and saw small red eyes blinking in the dark. She did not know if they were rats or spirits, but she was too scared to ask. Suddenly, Mama Moya shouted, Moya, bring out the mirror. Moya's hands were shaking as she brought out a small cracked mirror from her wrapper. Mama Moya took the mirror and placed it on top of the calabash, and she began to chant again, calling Muna's name. The wind blew stronger and the rain fell harder, but Mama Moya's voice was louder than the rain. Moya, repeat after me, Mama Moya commanded. Moya's lips were trembling, but she repeated the words her mother was saying, calling Muna's name, telling the spirit to take away her beauty and give it to her. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck near them and they both screamed, falling into the mud. Mama, I want to go home, Moya cried, her body shaking. But Mama Moya held her hand tightly, her eyes shining with strange light. It is too late to go back now, Moya, Mama Moya said, her voice deep and strange. Moya was trembling as they finished the strange thing her mother made her do that rainy night. The thunder still roared far away, and the cold rain made her body shake. But fear was the biggest thing, making her shake like a chicken under the rain. She held her mother's wrapper tightly as they walked back to the village. Her feet slipped in the mud and she almost fell many times. Her heart was beating fast. She could still hear her mother chant in her ears, calling Muna's name, calling spirit to take her beauty. Mama, are we safe? Moya asked with tears in her eyes. Quiet and warm. And Moya hissed at her, looking around to see if anyone was watching them. When they reached their hut, Moya did not wait. She banged on the wooden door. Open! Open! One of Moya's younger siblings came, sleepy-eyed, and opened the door. Moya did not wait. She jumped inside and ran to sit on a wooden chair, breathing fast, her wrapper dripping water on the mud floor. She held her chest, trying to calm her fast-beating heart. Her hands were cold, and she kept remembering the strange chants, the thunder, the mirror, and the calabash in the bush. Her small sister looked at her and asked, Sister, what happened? Why are you shaking like that? Before Moya could answer, Mama Moya shouted, Go and sleep. Go inside now. The little girl jumped and ran inside to the mat, afraid of her mother's loud voice. The room became quiet except for the sound of Moya's teeth chattering. She leaned forward, looked at her mother with fear, and whispered, Mama, are you a witch? Mama Moya's eyes widened. Keep quiet, she shouted in a low voice, looking around quickly even though they were alone. But Mama, Moya tried to speak. I said keep quiet before you bring trouble to us. Mama Moya snapped, pointing a warning finger at her. That night, Moya could not sleep well. Every small sound made her jump. When the wind blew the window open, she screamed, thinking it was a spirit. Her mother kept easing at her, telling her to sleep. Finally, the morning came, and Moya closed her eyes, tired, but she heard a loud scream from the next compound. Ah, Mama, somebody! Help me! Moya and her mother jumped up from their mats. They looked at each other, fear and confusion on their faces. Let's go and see. Mama, Moya said quickly, tying her wrapper and rushing out. Moya followed closely, holding her mother's wrapper again. They ran toward the screaming, and many villagers were already running to see what was happening. Some were afraid and hid behind trees, while others stood on their toes trying to see. Lo and behold, it was Muna. But this was not the Muna everyone knew. She looked like a skeleton. Her skin was dry and pale. Her eyes were sunken and her cheeks were hollow. Her beautiful hair looked rough and scattered, and her wrapper was hanging loosely on her thin frame. People were so scared that they covered their mouths and ran from their huts. So women shouted, Muna, what is this? While some children hid behind their mothers, they sat on the ground looking at her, and crying. She could not believe it was her own body. She touched her face, hoping it was a dream, but it was real. Mama Muna, her mother, was the only person who stayed beside her, crying and holding her. Tears fell from her eyes as she asked, "Muna, my child, what happened? Why are you looking like this? Did you have a bad dream?" Muna looked at her mother, opened her mouth to talk, but no words came out. She only cried, tears rolling down her thin cheeks, wishing she could wake up from the nightmare. People gathered around the hut, but were too afraid to come close. Some said it was witchcraft. Some said maybe Muna stole someone's husband. Some said she used charm on men and the charm had backfired. A few hours later, Muna's father, Papa, returned from the farm. A young man was walking behind him carrying Papa's firewood on his head. The young man was strong with muscles from farming. He dropped the firewood beside Papa Muna's kitchen and wiped the sweat from his face. Then he knelt down saying, "Papa Muna, I want to remind you of your promise. You said you will help me to talk to Muna so she can marry me." Papa Muna was about to laugh and give the young man a kola nut when Moya arrived panting. "Papa, Papa," she shouted. "Papa." Papa looked at her with surprise. "What is it, Moya? Why are you running and shouting like a goat?" "Something has happened to Muna," Moya shouted, pointing toward their huts. Papa did go, and the young man looked at each other and quickly ran towards the hut, with Moya running behind them. When they entered, they saw Muna sitting on the floor looking like a skeleton, crying. Mama Muna was sitting beside her, tears falling as she held her daughter's bony hands. Papa Muna and the young man gasped loudly. The young man even fell back and sat on the floor holding his head. "Is this Muna?" Papa Muna asked, pointing at her, and her mother nodded in tears. "Muna, my daughter, what happened to you?" Papa Muna shouted, tears filling his eyes. Muna could not answer. She only looked at him with tears rolling down. Mama Muna was crying. "I don't know my husband. I don't know what happened to our daughter. Oh, she woke up like this." People outside the hut were murmuring, saying it was a curse, saying it was the work of the spirits. Mama Moya was there too, standing in the corner, pretending to cry. She wiped her fake tears and shook her head, saying, "Oh, Muna, what happened? Oh God, help us." But inside her heart, she was smiling, thinking, "Good, let us see which man will bring yam for her now." That evening, Papa Muna could not sit still. He called Mama Muna. "We cannot leave our daughter like this. We must take her to the native doctor." They lifted Muna gently, and Papa Muna, Mama Muna and two young men helped to carry her to the native doctor's place at the edge of the village. The road was quiet, and people peeped from their huts as they passed, whispering and shaking their heads. When they reached the native doctor's small mud house, the native doctor was sitting outside wearing red cloth with cowries tied around his neck. His eyes were small and sharp like a lizard's eyes. He looked at Muna and shook his head slowly. They laid Muna down and the native doctor brought out his cowries, bones and small bottles. He began to chant and throw the cowries on the floor, looking at them carefully. Papa Muna and Mama Muna waited, holding hands and praying silently. After some time, the native doctor sighed. "I cannot see who did this or how it was done," he said, looking at them. Mama Muna began to cry loudly. "Please help us. I don't want to lose my only child." The native doctor raised his hand. "Calm down, woman. I see a solution. Until Muna finds true love, she will remain like this. If she finds a man who truly loves her, a man who loves her enough to marry her, she will return to her normal self, even more beautiful," replied the native doctor. They all looked at Muna, who was crying softly, and Papa wiped his tears. "How will we know who truly loves her now?" he asked. "Time will tell. Let's pray. The spirit of true love shows itself." Muna and her mother returned home from the native doctor's place, and they both could not stop crying. Mama Muna held her daughter close, wiping her tears with the edge of her wrapper, but she was also crying. My daughter, don't cry, Mama Muna would say, but her voice would break and tears would drop from her eyes. Adewo would look at her thin arms and her dry legs and cry even more. Mama, why me? Mama, what did I do to deserve this? Which sane man would love someone who looks like me? Every day, Mama Muna would cook herbs and give Muna to drink, hoping she would get better. And Muna would sip them slowly, tears falling into the cup. Weeks passed and Muna could now walk slowly by herself, though she looked like a moving skeleton. The children in the village would see her and run away screaming, "Masquerade! Masquerade!" One early morning, Muna and her mother stepped out of their hut to light the fire for cooking breakfast. Mama Muna had tied her old wrapper and Muna was wearing her mother's scarf to cover her rough hair. They were about to fetch water when they heard loud voices and laughter. They turned their heads and saw young men gathered in front of Mama Moya's hut. Each young man was carrying something: baskets of yams, cassavas, palm oil, smoked fish, and even kola nuts. "Mama, please let me marry Moyo. I love her," one of the young men shouted, holding a basket of big yams. Another young man pushed forward. "No, I love her more. Mama, see what I brought: palm oil and smoked fish." The men began arguing among themselves, pushing each other, trying to show who loved Moyo the most. One said he would build Moyo a new hut. Another said he would buy her a goat. The place was noisy, and the young men looked excited. Mona and her mother stood there staring with dropped jaws. They could not believe their eyes. It was as if all the men who once chased Adego had now turned to Moyo. Mona turned to her mother, her eyes filled with tears. "Mama, are you sure Mama Moyo does not know something about what happened to me?" Mama Muna looked at her, sighed and shook her head. "My daughter, Mama Moyo may be wicked, but I don't think she would do such a thing." But deep in her heart, Mama Muna began to wonder too. Just then, the young men turned and noticed Muna standing there. They all stopped shouting for a moment, looked at her from head to toe and burst into loud laughter. "Ah, Muna, your time has passed," one of them shouted. "When we were bringing you yams and palm wines, you were doing like a peacock, raising your shoulders." Another added, "See you now, you are like broomstick." One shouted, laughing so hard that they bent over. The men continued laughing loudly, and the sound pierced Muna's heart. Her eyes filled with tears, and she turned around and ran back into the hut, crying loudly. "Mama, they are all laughing at me. Mama, they are all laughing at me." She wept. Mama Muna rushed in after her and held her tight. "My daughter, don't mind them. Please don't mind them." But tears rolled down her face. Outside, the laughter continued, and Moya came out of the hut wearing a new wrapper with her shoulders high like a proud hen. She looked at Muna's hut, hissed loudly, and walked past without greeting. "Masquerade," Moya said loudly so that everyone would hear. The young men laughed and followed Moya around like chickens following corn. From that day, Moya would purposely pass in front of Muna's hut every morning, wearing fine wrappers and smiling, ignoring Adigo and her mother. Sometimes she would look at Muna and laugh softly, saying, "Masquerade." A few days later, Papa Muna came back from the palm wine joint. His wrapper was hanging loosely on his waist and his eyes were red. He had been drinking too much, and when he walked, he staggered like a goat with weak legs. He pushed the door of Mama Muna's hut and entered. Our Muna was cooking watery soup for Muna using small dry fish she borrowed from a neighbor. "My husband, welcome," Mama Muna greeted, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Papa Muna did not answer immediately. He sat down on the wooden chair and sighed deeply. Then he looked at Mama Muna with tired eyes and said, "I cannot take this anymore, Mama Muna." Mama Muna looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" "Everywhere I go, people laugh at me," Mama Muna said, rubbing his face with his rough palm. "At the palm wine joint today, they laughed, saying, 'See Muna's father. See how his beautiful daughter now looks like a ghost.' They laughed and I could not drink my palm wine in peace." Tears gathered in Mama Muna's eyes. "What do you want me to do?" Papa Muna looked at her and said, "Take Muna to your village. Let her stay there. Moya's wedding is coming and people will come from far and near. I don't want them to come here and see Muna looking like this." Mama Muna felt as if hot water had been poured on her. She could not believe what she was hearing. So you want me to take Muna away from our own father's house because of Moya's wedding? Papa Muna nodded. Yes, this is for the best. I am tired of this shame. Mama Muna's lips shook. You are choosing Moya's wedding over your daughter? Papa Muna looked away, unable to meet her eyes. In the other room, Muna was sitting on the floor listening to everything. Tears fell from her eyes as she hugged her knees tightly. She could not believe her father was sending her away because she was now hungry. That night, Mama Muna could not sleep. She sat outside looking at the moon, tears rolling down her cheeks. Muna came and sat beside her and they hugged each other, crying quietly. Mama, why is the world so wicked to me? Muna whispered. Mama Muna kissed her forehead. My child, I don't know, but God sees everything. The next morning, very early, while the cock was still crowing, Muna woke Mama Muna up. It is time, please leave now.